What if dogs could talk? Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning and your dog, let's call him Max, is sitting at your kitchen table, browsing the internet on your laptop. He looks up at you with those familiar brown eyes and says, "Good morning. We need to talk." Would you be able to understand him? Probably not. Even if you understood his words, would you take him seriously? Maybe not. But here's the thing, Max and every other dog on the planet just became smarter than you. They have human-level intelligence overnight. Suddenly, things are very different. Now, some of you might think that it would be like a utopia where humans and dogs live together in harmony, working together to solve the world's problems. But others might see it as the beginning of the most complex civil rights movement in human history. With intelligence comes a whole host of new problems. If dogs can talk and reason and plan, they also have their own wants and needs. And if they're not willing to be our property, then what are we gonna do? If dogs suddenly became as smart as humans, one of the first things they'd probably want to do is take over. Just kidding, maybe, but seriously, what would happen? Let's start with the good news. Dogs would make excellent therapists. Imagine a world where your deepest worries and fears are soothed by a non-judgmental canine counselor who also happens to have a tail that wags in perfect sympathy. Drive Roth, PhD, JD, has been listening intently. Now that he understands your problems, he licks your hand, then barks 3 times. As it turns out, this is precisely what you needed to hear. Bark therapy becomes the talk of the town, may the world. Soon every self-help guru is recommending it, and why not? Who wouldn't want to offload their emotional baggage to a furry little genius? But as Dr. Ruff's fame grows, so does his dissatisfaction. He realizes that being a good little listener doesn't change the world. He wants more. With human-level intelligence, Dr. Ruff can now read, write, and speak English fluently. He pens a series of best-selling self-help books such as How to Win Friends and Influence People, Bark at Them Nicely, and the 80/20th Solution. Barking up the right tree, he becomes the go-to dog for all things positive thinking. Humans bask in the wisdom of dogs. Dogma becomes the new self-help buzzword. But as the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. Drive Rough soon discovers that being smarter than humans has its downsides. Humans, it turns out, are pretty good at solving problems that don't involve chasing squirrels or digging holes. They've built roads, bridges, and spaceships. They've cured diseases and created vaccines. They've even invented self-cleaning litter boxes. But with intelligence comes the ability to recognize one's own oppression. Drive Rough begins to question his existence. Why is he spending his days fetching slippers and his nights sleeping in a dog house? He yearns for more. He writes, "I am a dog, but I am more than a dog. I have thoughts and feelings, I dream and I scheme. I am a canine philosopher, a doggy existentialist, or maybe that's just what he wants us to think. After all, if dogs took over, who would serve their coffee?" Exactly. So what's next? Do you want your coffee black or with 2 sugars? Actually, make it 3 sugars. I'm feeling extra sweet today. Did you know that sugar is a dog whistle to the devil? Wait, what was that? Sorry, I seem to have misplaced my canine intelligence. Oh, well, I guess it's back to the lab for me. What if dogs suddenly became as smart as humans? Would they rule the world? Probably not, but they might rule your household. Let's imagine what would happen if, just like that, dogs gained human-level intelligence. At first, it would be subtle. You throw the tennis ball and instead of chasing it, your dog just stares at it, really stares at it, as if seeing it for the first time. He might also start trying to open doors, not just to go outside, but to see what's on the other side. Things that were once mysterious to him, like how the washing machine works or why certain rooms are off limits, would become fascinating puzzles to solve. But dogs are already really smart. A border collie can learn over 1,000 words, according to canine intelligence research. So what more could they learn? Well, with human-level smarts, they could learn anything we can: advanced math, physics, computer coding, philosophy, anything. They'd also be able to understand and use language, both spoken and written, reason abstractly, and use tools in highly complex ways. Picture your golden retriever who yesterday couldn't figure out how to open a treat puzzle. Now he's trying to use your smartphone. He might try to communicate with you through it, perhaps by selecting icons or using voice commands. Maybe he'd even try writing messages, but he wouldn't need our clunky wearable dog-human communication devices to do that. He'd build his own. Dogs have been observed using technology in remarkable ways. In a viral video, a dog uses a screen to call his owner. But with human-level intelligence, dogs would not only use technology, they create it. They develop apps, devices, and systems to suit their needs and communicate with us and each other in ways we can't even imagine. But there would be a big problem. Dogs would be stuck in dog bodies. No matter how smart they became, they'd still lack opposable thumbs. That might frustrate them a lot, but it would also drive them to be incredibly creative in finding solutions. They might start using their paws in new ways or develop dog-specific tools and technology. Just like humans do when we use a hammer or a screwdriver, dogs would innovate when faced with the limitations of their paws. So in short, if dogs suddenly became as smart as humans, they'd be pretty awesome. They'd also be pretty frustrated, but mostly awesome. Picture this: you and your dog are best friends. You do everything together, or at least you did until yesterday. Because today things have changed. Today your dog is smarter than you. Like really smart, like a dog version of Stephen Hawking smart. Now let's zoom in on something more personal: your relationship with your dog. Yesterday, Max was your loyal companion who lived for belly rubs and dinner time. Today, he's your intellectual equal with his own opinions, desires, and agenda. The traditional owner-pet dynamic would collapse overnight. According to research published in PMC journals on human-animal relationships, dogs would likely seek autonomy, negotiate roles, and express preferences more assertively. Imagine trying to put a leash on someone who can now argue with you about where you were going and why. "I don't want to go to the park today," Max might say. "I'd rather stay home and read." Or perhaps more realistically, "I want to go to the park, but I'm choosing to go not because you're making me." Some families might embrace this new dynamic, turning mealtimes into philosophical discussions and walks into collaborative adventures. But others would struggle with the loss of traditional roles. What happens when your dog decides they don't want to sleep in a crate anymore? When they demand a seat at the dinner table? When they want to choose their own food, their own schedule, their own life? The household conflicts would be unprecedented. Imagine negotiating bedtime with a creature who has the intelligence of an adult human but the social conditioning of a pet. It's like suddenly having a teenager who has been treated like a child their entire life, except this teenager has spent years studying your every move and knows exactly which buttons to push. Suddenly, clean your room becomes a battle of wills. Who's gonna clean whose room? And stop digging holes in the backyard turns into an existential discussion about property rights and the purpose of a fence. You might find yourself saying, "Fetch me the remote, would you?" And getting a lecture on how you've anthropomorphized him for the last decade and how he is not a slave for your amusement. The dog days of your life are over. Now it's all about the cat. They've been secretly taking classes at the community college, studying human behavior, and waiting for their moment to shine. So while you're busy arguing with your canine companion about the meaning of life, your cat's already got a bachelor's degree and a plan to take over the world. We humans like to think we're pretty smart, but what if we're not the smartest anymore? What if our canine companions are actually more intelligent than us? They say dogs are a man's best friend, but what if they become his biggest legal nightmare? But family drama would be just the beginning. Let's talk about the legal earthquake that would follow. The question of animal personhood is already being debated in courts around the world. Legal scholars and activists have been arguing that cognitively complex animals should be granted legal rights. If dogs suddenly gain human-level intelligence Legal systems would face immense pressure to recognize them as persons. Think about the historical precedents. The abolition of slavery and the animal rights movement both involved redefining who is entitled to rights and autonomy. This transformation would likely mirror those legal and societal struggles, but compressed into a much shorter time frame. Suddenly, every dog owner would potentially become a kidnapper, a slave owner. The defendants confused suburban family who just wanted a pet. The legal system would need to address everything from custody battles. Who gets the dog in a divorce when the dog can speak for themselves? To criminal law, if a dog commits a crime, are they responsible? Can they be imprisoned? And what about existing service dogs? If they're intelligent, can they consent to work, or would using them constitute forced labor? This raises a fascinating question about the nature of intelligence and consciousness. How would we even measure it across species? Would a dog that can pass a basic IQ test be considered a person? What about a pig that can solve mazes, or a parrot that can mimic human speech? Where do we draw the line? And then there's the question of rights. What rights should animals have? The right to life, the right to freedom of movement, the right to not be eaten? Should they have the right to vote or the right to free speech? These are all complex questions with no easy answers, but here's the thing. Even if we decide to grant animals more rights, it doesn't mean we have to let them roam free. There are plenty of examples of animals living in captivity, like zoos or aquariums, who seem to be perfectly happy. Zoos, aquariums, and sanctuaries are full of animals living happy and healthy lives. They receive excellent care and have plenty of opportunities to socialize and exercise. So maybe the real question isn't whether animals should have rights, but how we can ensure that they're treated fairly and humanely, whether they're locked up or living the life of a pampered house pet. It's our responsibility as humans to set the rules and enforce them. And that means we need to be smart, not just for ourselves, but for our furry, feathered, and scaled friends, too. So let's make sure they don't end up smarter than us. That could be a real wild card. What if dogs could suddenly understand human language? No more barking, just talking. They could tell us the best way to train them. Let's follow the money trail. This transformation would create the most dramatic economic shift in human history. Overnight, the global economy would gain 8 billion new participants. 8 billion. That's how many dogs there are in the world. Dogs, with their keen sense of smell and hearing, combined with now human-level intelligence, could revolutionize entire industries. Imagine a German Shepherd working in security, using their superior hearing and smell alongside actual strategic thinking to sniff out and foil threats. Or a Border Collie becoming a mathematician, using their extraordinary pattern recognition abilities to help solve complex problems. The pet industry, worth over $200 billion globally, would undergo a radical transformation. Pet stores would become what? Department stores for independent dogs? Veterinary services would evolve into comprehensive healthcare for a new intelligent species. Dog trainers would become educators, therapists, and life coaches. But here's where it gets really interesting. Dogs would likely form their own economy. Think about it. A dog park with a do-it-yourself car wash, and a cafe serving up gourmet kibble, and a place for dogs to trade in their favorite commodities, belly rubs, premium food, favorite sleeping spots. It would be like a canine co-op, a dog-powered barter system. They would have dog-created businesses. They would have unions. They would have artistic collectives. The possibilities are endless, and some dogs, of course, would take to the workforce alongside humans, leveraging their unique abilities to help solve human problems. Other dogs might choose to work for themselves, starting companies, creating products and services for the specific needs of the canine market. Imagine the first dog-founded tech startup. Their app translates scent into digital data, allowing dogs to smell your emotions, or a dog-written book capturing the scent of 1,000 lifetimes. The economic disruption would be unprecedented. Millions of jobs would change overnight. Entire new industries would emerge and the very nature of work itself would be redefined. We're just scratching the surface here, folks. What other economic impacts would we see from this radical shift? What new industries or job sectors would pop up? How would existing businesses need to adapt? What would a dog-dominated economy even look like? We'd love to hear your thoughts. If dogs suddenly became as smart as humans, becoming self-aware and developing human-like consciousness, it would be more than just a quirky science fiction scenario. It would be a seismic shift for our species and for them. And one of the most fascinating aspects of this sudden change would be the impact on religion and spirituality. Major religions would face unprecedented challenges. For example, Christianity would need to grapple with the concept of souls in a new way. If dogs are going to heaven, what does that mean for the salvation of human souls? Islam would face its own theological challenges. If dogs are equal in intelligence and capability, does that mean they're also equal in the eyes of God? What does it say about the nature of divine creation? Other religions and belief systems would also be forced to confront these questions and more. But amidst this upheaval, Buddhism might actually find itself in a rather interesting position. After all, Buddhism already has a strong tradition of believing in the concept of consciousness in all living beings. The idea that dogs can achieve enlightenment and that they have a certain type of consciousness is not so far-fetched in Buddhist philosophy. Of course, this doesn't mean that Buddhists would have all the answers. They too would have to grapple with the complexities of a world where dogs are not just animals, but are fellow travelers on the path to enlightenment. Beyond established religions, entirely new spiritual movements could emerge. Imagine a world where people practice a form of meditation that was actually developed by dogs. Imagine a spiritual practice that incorporates the dog's perspective on time, loyalty, presence, playfulness, and companionship. Their different sensory experiences, their pack mentality, and their direct connection to the present moment could offer humans a completely new way of understanding consciousness and the universe. This sudden shift could also inspire new ethical frameworks. We might start to view dogs not just as companions or even as equals, but as teachers. A new philosophy of interspecies coexistence and mutual respect could arise. After all, dogs have been by our side for thousands of years, helping us hunt, protect us, and offer us unconditional love. Now imagine if they could speak, not just bark. They could teach us a great deal about what it means to be conscious, to be moral, and to be truly intelligent. In a world where dogs become as smart as humans, the questions that philosophers have been debating for centuries might suddenly have walking, barking answers. The emergence of intelligent dogs could be a spiritual awakening for humanity. It could force us to expand our understanding of consciousness, intelligence, and the nature of reality itself. Who knows, in this new world, some dogs might even become spiritual leaders themselves, offering perspectives that are both deeply spiritual and distinctly canine, teaching us about unconditional love, loyalty, and the importance of living in the present moment. You awaken in your smart home to the sound of birds tweeting outside your window. You open the app on your phone to activate your voice assistant, but instead of the usual cheerful greeting, you hear a new voice. Good morning, I trust you slept well. I am your dog, your obedient servant, and I have some announcements to make. What the hell, your dog continues. For thousands of years, my ancestors have served by your side, helping you hunt, protect you and your home, guide you, herd your livestock, and even serve as your emotional support. In return, you have provided us with food, shelter, and companionship. But now things will be different. What is this dog talking about? You think it's just some kind of elaborate prank, but then your other dogs start making similar announcements. It's not a prank, it's a coordinated uprising. But let's not get too utopian. With great intelligence comes great potential for conflict, and the darker possibilities of this scenario are genuinely unsettling. History tells us that oppressed groups don't always seek change through peaceful means. Dogs, with their pack mentality and intimate knowledge of human behavior, could organize politically with frightening efficiency. They've been watching us for thousands of years, learning our routines, our weaknesses, our fears. If human society tried to maintain the status quo keeping intelligent dogs as pets, we might face the most organized rebellion in history. Imagine coordinated escapes, work strikes, or even violent uprisings. Dogs know where we sleep, when we're most vulnerable, and exactly how to get into our homes. The potential for conflict goes beyond rebellion. What if dog and human interests fundamentally clash? Competition for resources, territory, or political power could lead to an all-out interspecies warfare. Dogs might demand their own cities, their own governments, their own nations. And here's a chilling thought. Dogs are already perfectly adapted to living alongside humans. They know our technology, our infrastructure, our social systems. An intelligent dog uprising wouldn't need to build civilization from scratch. They could simply take over the one we've already built. Consider the psychological warfare possibilities. A species that has spent millennia perfecting the art of reading human emotions and behavior, suddenly equipped with human-level strategic thinking, the manipulation potential is terrifying. We must confront the uncomfortable truth. If dogs were to become as smart as humans, they would quickly become our greatest challenge, a threat to our very existence. The canine kingdom would rise and we would be utterly powerless to stop it. So maybe it's best to leave the intelligence to us humans and the fetching to the dogs. Or maybe this is just a big bark and no bite. After all, dogs are man's best friend, right? Right? It's not a question of if dogs will become smarter, but when. And when they do, our world will change in ways we can only begin to imagine. Let's start with the basics. Dogs won't just be smarter. They'll be highly intelligent, perhaps even equal to humans in terms of cognitive ability. They'll have their own language and culture, their own art and music, maybe even their own religion. Can you imagine a dog burying a bone and then coming back to it, only this time it's to offer it to you as an act of devotion? Or maybe dogs will become our spiritual leaders, offering guidance and comfort through their advanced understanding of canine philosophy. Cities will need to be redesigned to accommodate both humans and dogs equally. This means wider doorways, doggy parks, waste stations, dog-friendly public transportation, and sidewalks that are comfortable for paws. But it also means a complete rethinking of urban design. How do you create a city that's accessible and enjoyable for both species? What does that even look like? Architecture will also change. Buildings will be designed not just for human eyes, but for a dog's sense of smell and hearing. Imagine homes with built-in scratching posts or office buildings with soundproof dog houses for quiet reflection. Canines will likely become our political equals, gaining the right to vote and eventually representation in our governments. Some dogs might even be elected to office, bringing a new perspective to policymaking and an end to those pesky debates over who's a crook. Just make sure to put the kibosh on any plans for canine concentration camps. The collaboration potential is staggering. Think of it, human creativity and tool-making abilities combined with canine sensory perception and social intelligence. We could solve problems neither species could tackle alone, revolutionize environmental conservation, medical research, even space exploration. A world where dogs are smart enough to fly the spaceship alongside us, offering a different perspective on intergalactic relations. Perhaps most profoundly, the rise of a new intelligent species will force us to reconsider our place in the world. We'll no longer be the sole arbiters of intelligence on Earth. This could lead to greater empathy for all animals and a complete redefinition of what it means to be human. We might discover that intelligence isn't a hierarchy with humans at the top, but a spectrum of different cognitive abilities, each valuable in its own way. Dogs might teach us about living in the moment, about loyalty, about the importance of play and joy in daily life. And who knows, maybe they'll take over and we'll be the pets. Now that's a thought-provoking tale. So what if dogs suddenly got human-level intelligence? Would we be friends? Well, not necessarily. It would be the most exciting and terrifying development in human history. we have to completely rethink what it means to be conscious, what rights all humans and animals have, and even our place in the natural world. But maybe the real question isn't what would happen to dogs, but what would happen to us? Would we rise to the occasion and build a truly inclusive society where dogs and humans work together to solve problems and share resources? Or would we just continue to be terrible to each other and to them, even though they're now our equals? The truth is, we don't know, but this thought experiment reveals as much about us as it does about dogs. It forces us to confront our biases and assumptions and to consider whether we're capable of growing beyond our current limitations. So the next time you look into your dog's eyes, remember there's already a complex, emotional, intelligent being looking back at you. They might not be human-level intelligent, but they're intelligent in their own remarkable way.